Welcome to this week's installment of Mad River Roundwreckers. So what I've done is I've put myself down here in the practice area and put myself on a slope like so to give you a little bit more insight as to how to hit the downhill pitch shot or just a downhill shot in general. So what I've done here is I've set myself up to the flag that's 62 yards away. It's pretty specific. And what I would liken this to on the golf course is a hole like number 8. Okay, so let's say you hit your tee shot, it catches the hill and you go, yeah, I got it over the top of that hill and now it's running down. But now you've left yourself with this lie. So now what do you do? Okay, so usually that yardage is going to play around something to this effect, 65 yards, 75 yards, 85 yards. It's definitely less than 100. So it's just understanding that there's a few key variables that we need to address, and let's get to it. So variable number 1 is static and dynamic mass distribution. That's a mouthful and it's a lot of syllables, but it's pretty important. So what it means is this: static is simply what do we do at address. Okay, so as I'm standing still, static, how do I set up? The second is dynamic. Dynamic is motion. So what am I doing dynamically with my mass to effectively hit this shot? It starts with static. So it goes like this. When I take my setup, here's what I want to feel. First of all, I want to feel that I have about 95% of my pressure on my lead foot. So for me, being a right-handed player, that's my left foot. For left-handed players, that's your right foot. Okay, so take my setup here, and I want to feel that I've got 95, at least, percent of my pressure on that lead foot. And what it's going to do is it's going to stay there dynamically. And here's what I mean. As I take the club back, I still have 95% of my pressure on that lead foot. In fact, I would say I have 98% of my pressure on that lead foot. It is increased. Okay, so why is this important? We need to hit down on this shot, which is why it's so important to make sure that our mass stays forward. If I tend to, let's say I go wide, and I'll get to this point after, but if I go like this and I shift over here, well, my mass just shifted that way. Let's think center of mass again is somewhere up here, and this is how we control that shot. So here I've got 95% of my pressure here. As I take the club back, I've got at least 95% of my pressure, and as I get down to impact, I've got 100% of my pressure on that lead foot. Also, I want to get a sensation that I've got a lot of knee flex in my lead knee. Okay, so when I take my address, as I flex my knee forward, that pushes all of that pressure into that lead foot. Okay, so if I stand up tall, I feel like I'm more equally balanced. Now I press or get a lot of knee flex in that lead leg. Now I'm pushing down into that lead foot. So as I go up, you'll see that the flex in my knee slightly increases, and that's what pushes that mass even further forward, ensuring that I don't hit behind the ball, because the slope is going to cause you to hit behind the ball. So here it goes again. So 95% of my pressure forward. As I go back, I've got increased knee flex. And as I come through, I maintain that knee flex, which makes sure that I stay down through this shot. Let's give it a little whirl. The second point here is that ball position is crucial in this shot. So there is definitely a preferred ball position so that we make sure that we make ball first contact and not turf first contact, okay? So what do we do here? So I'm going to take my setup, okay, and what you're going to see here is if I were taking a normal pitch shot and I was on an even lie, I would do something to this effect where the ball is in the middle of my stance. But on this one, I'm going to move the ball back in my stance. Okay, so I go like so, and if you can see from camera angle, the ball is basically positioned about one club head inside my back foot. Okay, so somewhere there and there. And then from there, I go pressure 95%. You're also going to notice that my stance is really narrow, okay? So if I were to widen out, this gives me more of an opportunity to shift my mass to my back foot. And this is one of the key things I see out here on a daily basis. Wide setup leads to mass shift over this direction, okay? And the more that I can reiterate that, the better. So narrow stance, about one club head inside the trail foot, lead foot flared, and then push again 95% of your weight into that front. The third point I'd like to make is that your swing path or your swing arc changes slightly in these shots. Okay, again, these shots need to be ball first contact, not turf first contact. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to shift the camera over here, and I'll show you what I mean by using a hula hoop. Okay, so now I have this hula hoop. In a normal shot, if I were to take my setup like so, the hula hoop essentially represents the swing path that the club is going to take. So if this club sits like this, flat on the bottom, the club is essentially going to go up that hula hoop and down that hula hoop. And that's going to be what we would call a zeroed out swing path, or a very neutral swing path. But on these particular shots, because again, we want to make ball first contact and not ground first contact, what we do is we shift our swing arc ever so slightly this direction. So what I do is I essentially take my club a little bit outside this way and then come back down a little bit that. Now, the reason I want my club path to go a little bit more outside and come down a little bit more outside is because it shifts the swing path a little bit higher off the ground. Okay, so that ensures that I'm not going to hit the ground behind the golf ball. So a little bit outside to in will definitely ensure that you make better contact with the ball and less contact with the ground. Okay, so from there we're going to move on to the fourth point, and I'll just bring the camera right back over there. So the final point I want to make here is point number 4, and that's this. This swing has a really narrow arc, okay? So let me reiterate, this swing has a very narrow arc in the backswing and is flat and low to the ground in the forward swing. And here's what I mean. So a swing arc is essentially just this. We'll use the hula hoop again. So the club goes up on this arc and it comes down on this arc. Okay, but in this situation, what we're going to try to do is we're going to shorten or narrow the backswing to ensure that that club's coming down a little bit steeper at the ball, to ensure ball first contact. Again, we don't want to hit the ground. So if I use this hula hoop as kind of a visual, I can go like this and I'll just kind of put my foot there where the ball is. That would be a regular swing arc on flat ground. On a shot like this, my swing arc is going to flatten as it comes through the ball. Okay, so what it does is it gets a little bit steeper back here, and then it really flattens on the way through. I'll show you what I mean. So I have this stick as a reminder to tell me, okay, I don't want to make this swing long, where if I did so, I would, hit that stick. It's a little far away now, but so it looks something like this. When I take the club back, the club goes on a narrow arc, and I do that by wrist hinge. So as I hinge my wrist back like this, that really narrows my arc. It brings it in, it doesn't make it long, right? So a normal golf swing would be something to that effect. Here, narrow. And as I bring the club through, I want to get the sensation that that club is going low through the ground. Okay, that ensures that I'm keeping it low to the ground on this downslope, which is what this shot calls for. So it looks something like this in slow motion. And then as I come through, the club stays low to the ground, and then I come up and out of it. Okay, so that's kind of point number 4. Okay, so why don't we give it a whirl? All right, so let's go through our key checkpoints here. So I'm going to go narrow in my stance, right? That club's going to be, or that ball's going to be about 1 club head inside of my trail foot. Lead foot turns out, pressure goes into my lead side 95%. Ready? So here we go. There. Now I need to remember that when I take the club back, it's going to go slightly outside my hands, and as the club comes back down, it's going to swing slightly out to the left, ensuring that I steepen my angle of attack, yada, yada, yada. Okay? And finally, this is going to be some wrist hinge and then low on the way through. Okay? Here we go. And that one landed right on the front side of the green, hopped over the flag a little to the left. I think I aim left. Wouldn't be anything new. But yeah, so we'll take a look at that one on TrackMan. Hopefully all the numbers picked up and so on. But yeah, if you have any questions, please feel free to get a hold of me. Leave messages in the comments below. I'll try to get to them as soon as possible. Or just email me if you know my email address. And I hope you liked the video, and see you next time. Thanks for watching.